Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Bethany and I'm the Relationship and Engagement Manager here at UMI, and today I'm joined by my colleague Abby, who is our Digital Campaign Manager.
Hi.
Here at UMI, we help businesses by taking the hard work out of finding the very best expertise, information and finance. That's why we're here today with one of the very best experts on all things marketing to help you with your current strategy and what you need to start doing it. So before we dive in, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A chat box in your Zoom control panel and we'll try and answer them as we go, but we'll also have time for questions at the end. Now, without further ado, today we're here to explore and discuss how to get the results you want from marketing. And on that note, I'd like to introduce our guest. So today we have Mags Bradshaw from Red Button Marketing, which he started in 2017 and was dedicated to offering strategic support to SMEs with passion for growth. So Mags, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and Red Button Marketing?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. It's fantastic. So maybe can't see all of you, but certainly good afternoon and hello. So I started my business in 2017. I've had about 30 years experience in various industries, but all very much surrounding sales, customer service, and the customer journey. And I just felt I was in a point in my career where I really just felt I wanted to do something on my own and sort of take my own message forward. And I was very, very passionate about marketing. I kind of thought I was maybe like the business version of Cilla Black, in that I actually just loved joining people and opportunities and business and different things together. So that was really where I was coming from. So I started in 2017 doing some consultancy work for clients, but very quickly realised that I'd got a process that I had been sort of probably operating with without knowing for some time, that I wanted to develop into a way for businesses to actually plan their marketing. So my business is very much more around supporting people with their planning, and that's kind of where I've got to today. But it's been 3 years and I've loved every single minute and excited about the future.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So today, as you said, we're going to be talking about marketing and specifically marketing for results. And our first question is, it's quite a broad one, but why is marketing so important for business success?
For me, I actually think, and I'm bound to say because I'm passionate about marketing, but I absolutely firmly believe that marketing is kind of the magic ingredient that brings everything together within a business. Because I think in some ways it is a very, very, and you're right, it is a broad area. And I know when I've asked people to give their definition of marketing before, you can probably ask 100 people and get 100 different answers, because it's maybe that one thing that is hard to clearly define, because it is so broad and it covers a wide range of areas, but essential for businesses, because when done correctly or in a planned, organised and coordinated way, then it's a secret to bringing results to a business. And I just firmly believe that. And that's what's driven me in my business and why I continue with what I'm doing, because it's the science behind bringing everything together. So it really does encapsulate a lot of all the different elements of business, including production, service, all kinds of areas.
Yeah. So what do you think are the 4 main elements to developing a motivational and sustainable marketing strategy?
Well, what I'll do is I'll kind of share with you perhaps how this might give a little bit more power to what I'm saying, because I came up with my business name actually for a reason. So this is quite interesting. For anyone who started their own business, probably they might also get where I'm coming from, in that coming up with your name can sometimes be the hardest thing. So when I started my business, I was trying to come up with the name of what I was going to call myself, because I knew I kind of knew I had a bit of a vision. I knew I wanted to do something, and I didn't want to just be my name with marketing at the end of it, because I did feel I had something different to contribute based on all my experience. So I sat down and kind of decided that I'd have to come up with a good creative name. So I started off thinking that there was maybe 4 elements. I wasn't kind of sure what they were at the time. I was kind of figuring it out, and then I was joining bits together. I thought, oh, it's like a jigsaw. maybe I'm putting a jigsaw together. I looked up jigsaw marketing, that's gone. So I then kind of defined these 4 areas a little bit more, and I just did 4 circles on a piece of paper. And all I thought was, when coming up with my name, is all I can do is do it what I believe in and what I am passionate about and what I believe is involved in great marketing activity. So I just started drawing some lines between these circles. And then I kind of thought, I think I'm actually stitching a button on here. That's what it looks like. And that was how the red button marketing started. But there was some science behind the name. And when I started getting more into my business and doing some work for clients, it became even more apparent that what I was offering and what I did have was something quite different, because actually that process that I'd kind of, albeit not been as scientific as I am now, because it was very early on and I was still innovating, but I'd actually hit on something with that whole joining bits together. And it was as I was going through the early stages in 2017, I took time out to look more closely actually at what were those 4. I kind of had names for them, but I wanted to understand it more myself. And that's how we've innovated the platform. So those 4 key areas that I talk about, and these have been fixed firmly in place kind of from day one, but as I say now, it's much more clearly defined. Those 4 areas are your clients, is one, what we call buttonhole. So today I'll probably mention buttonholes a lot. So we call, one of them is a client buttonhole. The other element is a prospect buttonhole. Another one is the product and services within your business. That's a buttonhole, that's the key area. And the other one is communications. So when we're talking about 4 areas, we're talking about those 4 areas. And that is how I started it. I did start with those 4 way back in 2017, because I kind of felt those were the 4 main areas. But as I say, over time, that whole process has been so much more refined, and it's an incredibly robust platform that we now bring. But we start with those 4 areas. So clients, prospects, products and services, and communications. And we believe those are the 4 main key ways to start looking at your marketing.
That's great. So given that those are the main elements, what are the initial steps that a business needs to take to apply those ideas?
Well, the thing is, what we do in our workshops, because up until now we've been doing workshops, live ones, as in different organisations, and what we share are what we call 12 magic threads, because the key thing is actually then threading those 4 buttonholes together. So it is literally as straightforward as you stitching a button on. You need your button to keep done up on your shirt. As my mother said, if you keep your top button done up, you'll always look smart. So in my book, you need to have your marketing button well firmly in place. And so just on a light note for 1 second, we quite like the fact that it is a bit different, and we're talking about a button, because who would believe that your business could be represented by a button? But in this world, it's good to be different and bring something visual, colourful and creative, which we've done. But underneath that, there's a very, very robust process in there as well. So initially, what we encourage businesses to do is to consider their business as a button, and they have those 4 buttonholes. And what's really important is to actually look at those buttonholes and what's in them. So we talk about sort of populating those buttonholes and look closely at their clients. So for example, let's take the clients one for the moment. You know, do people fully understand, if looking at their current client base, how did those people become clients? Where did they come from? You know, are they tracking those referral sources that are bringing that business to them? You know, we really look quite closely at this, because for a minute we say, right, don't think about anything else, just think about your clients. Where are they? Location wise, you know, what do they do? What's their business? And how well do you understand their challenges? Because I think what's really important for a business, first of all, is to fully understand that knowledge about their clients, and who knows that. So who in your organization kind of is responsible, probably more than one person, but for gathering that information, because we can sort of go day to day without really taking a step back and thinking, right, who are my clients? Do I know what they're up against, or what do they want to do? What are their ideas? What do they want to achieve? You know, that understanding. And again, one thing we tend to probably repeat time after time, but people then think, have we actually done any marketing? And at that point we say, yes, you have, because this comes back to, how do you define marketing? And as I mentioned before, people often talk about activity. People say to me, well, I think marketing is having a website, or I think marketing's doing some leaflets, or I think marketing is social media. Those are the answers I get when I ask people what they think it is. So we're bringing a very different definition and a much more holistic and broader look at what is. And as you mentioned before, you know, it is a very wide area. But we believe the answer is a button. So when we're looking at, say, the client's buttonhole, you know, you are doing marketing activity because you're gathering information. And if we just, I'll kind of leap between the buttonholes and a little bit on the kind of threads, although I can't give them all away. That's the top secret information. But what we talk about, though, is how you link those buttonholes together, because that's the point. And if we think about this in terms of marketing, if we're not doing the initial research or profiling of clients, we're probably missing some jobs, so that when we do our activity, we're then entering that territory, and we've all perhaps been in situations where people say, oh, something didn't work. Well, what we're saying is, well, I tell you what, it actually might work a whole load better if you did the bit before. So what we're saying is, it's that bit before your activity that you've really got to get engaged with, which is why having the button idea really works so well. So, you know, looking at clients, how well have we looked at that information, and who in your organization knows about the clients? Because actually, the people you're working with, they're your business, they probably hold a lot of information that's incredibly valuable. And we can often just go around that and not pay full attention. I'm not saying everyone does, but what I'm just saying is, let's keep doing it. Let's keep checking that. And then the same applies to our prospects. Again, you know, who are we targeting? You know, who's right for your business, and how well do you have that information stored? You know, are you trying to, you know, wanting to talk to people who need blue widgets, but, you know, you make pink ones? So do you see what I mean? It's just making sure that we've got the right target market. We know where they are. We know what sectors they're in. We understand what their challenges are. You know, how many staff they have. Is it the right kind of business we're trying to appeal to? So how well do we know our potential clients, and are we targeting kind of the right people? So again, we're still at this point doing profiling, populating those buttonholes, because when we thread our activity from the buttonholes, which that's the secret bit, it will work so much better if we've done the initial. And then the same applies to the other two buttonholes. One, I mean, they're all it's all great stuff, and I'm bound to love it because I've been passionate about this for the last 3 years. But the other buttonhole, say products and services, this is a great one to look at, because this is all about, you know, innovating, looking at what you do, what you offer, and perhaps taking time to consider just a few of your products and services that will be the right ones to promote. But what are they? Have you actually got that clear? And as a team, are you all on the same page? So again, we say, I know I keep repeating it, but saying the importance of looking at these buttonholes in this way, because it's much more effective then when you carry out your activity. And the final buttonhole is communications. And for the purposes of the button, we break that down into 3 key areas. So we consider that businesses will have 3 forms of communication. That's either people, print, or digital. So undoubtedly, some businesses may have more or less of one or another, but to whatever extent you have them, we believe they're important, all of them, to be in a business, and consistency across those channels. So when you talk about the initial steps, actually the initial steps before anything is taking the time out to look at these 4 what we call buttonholes first of all. And it's kind of just getting your house in order really, and making sure you've addressed these key points. And that's the way forward to then bringing that all together. And I think on this point, it's important to mention the other passion that I have is people. And the secret is the people in your team as well. I think there's a lot of very talented people. There's a lot of great stuff going on. And we're very much focused on motivation. And that's what this platform is all about. It's giving people a way to start, to plan, implement, and sort of track all their marketing in a very straightforward but very solid way that enables everybody to get on board. So it's kind of that singing from the same hymn sheet thing, and that's what we're providing in the form of a button. Yes. So hopefully that gives you some answer to that, to those initial steps.
Yeah, so you mentioned there the first step being to kind of look at all the buttonholes. So what would be your 3 main steps that a business should take to build the strategy for their existing customers?
Well, I think that's when you look back at some of the points I mentioned in terms of, when you're sort of profiling really, because I think what you want to do, and another good point to mention when it comes to existing clients, is consider it in 2 ways. I think there's a transactional thing going on there, obviously, because you're probably sending them a bill and they're paying you. But you obviously really kind of want to hug them as well, albeit virtually, can I just say at the moment. You want to look after them. So there's 2 elements. There's the customer care side of things and the transactional side. So it's sometimes interesting to look at it in that way, because if we talk about people in an organization, it may not be the same person sending the bill as who might be also the person kind of looking after taking them for a coffee or giving them a call or whatever. So I think when you're looking at your clients, you need to look at it from those 2 ways. And again, see who in your company is responsible and who's doing what. So again, it's still a lot of getting your house in order is the key thing. Because when we move on to activity, actually the activity doesn't have to then be complex. It can be quite straightforward, but it's more effective if you've done the groundwork.
Yeah. We've had a question come through actually on the chat. So if you need to start audience profiling at customers and prospects and you've not done it before, how would you create the structure to do it properly so it's done right the first time?
On your potential clients?
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to also probably starting off looking at your business and kind of just maybe going back to one of the other buttonholes. This is quite interesting, so thank you for that question, because this is really interesting. This is what it all should hopefully and does link together. So you would then look at the other buttonholes as well. So look back at your products and services and see what you offer, and look back at your clients that you've currently got, because that could then shed light on, do you need, so let's say you've got 2 types of customer. I mean, I'm just using it as an example, 2 types of customer. Which kind of type of customer, for example, what sector or what size or location is really effective for you? So do you want more of them? And I think that's the first place to go, is looking at what you're currently doing, where you're most profitable or successful, and also where there's most scope for further development. So kind of almost looking at your clients and products buttonholes may give you a way to start. But I would probably say some of the key things to consider are sector that you'd like to target, and location, and potentially number of staff can be a factor. But I think those 2, first of all, are a good way to kind of start. But I'd look back at the buttonholes to give you some more information. So I hope that gives you some way of answering the question, if that helps in some way.
Great, thank you.
So how can businesses implement an effective marketing strategy overall, then taking all of the advice that you shared with us?
Okay, so I think the most important thing to do is to, as I say, establish the 4 key buttonholes for your business. So take a step back and just look again at what you're doing and try and sort of put them into those 4 categories. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are the 12 threads that then link those buttonholes together. That's something that we've innovated, so it has got copyright attached to it. So that's something that we'll be doing over a course of probably recorded webinars that will be available through our business school over the coming weeks, so people can get in touch and ask to be on the mailing list or the email list for those. where we share those 12 threads. But I think the key thing is to keep addressing what we've talked about today. And I've just covered some of the basic points. But by operating and using those 4 buttonholes to start with, and the process of linking those together, that is how you maintain an effective strategy. Because what we're talking about is continuing. And because we use the word thread, it means it never stops. Because I think in my experience, I've also seen where people do something great. One year, it's brilliant. And then they get to the next year and say, what are we doing this year? And it gets back to the drawing board again. And what we believe is actually you should never need to feel as though you go right back to the beginning. If you have a framework such as the one that we provide, that we can share, then it means you have a continuous program. Because what we provide are 12 solid, robust, we call them threads, that won't ever change. So we don't say to you what you need to put in your content or what you need to do when you do an event or anything like that. But we give you the kind of the rules, if you like, to follow, or the relationships between those buttonholes. And actually they will never change. I mean, I will be a bit cheeky and I'll, for example, share one. So to demonstrate the point. So for example, one of the threads going from a buttonhole to another is referrals and testimonials. So that's one that goes from one buttonhole to the other. So for example, I cannot see at any point a business that would not want to have referrals and testimonials, for example. So these are the kind of things we've got in place where they are the robust baseline for a business. So it's a strategy that is there for you to follow at all points. But it's motivational and gets your team engaged, because that's the other thing that's so important. Effective marketing, it's down to your people, it's down to your team, and if everyone can see, you know, they play a role in it, I think that's a massive factor for it being more successful. Again, you know, I've seen in companies where somebody may be a bit nervous or a bit fearful about getting involved in marketing because they maybe think they've got to do something that they haven't, or it's not clear, when in fact, by using something like our framework, they can see how even just perhaps what they might consider a small contribution actually makes a massive contribution to the bigger picture, and they can see that, and it really motivates them to get involved. So this strategy and the process that we bring is a way for a company to coordinate all of their activity that they're doing, but in line with their whole team. So everyone is heading in the same direction, and that is really powerful. Because then you've got a highly motivated team, all engaged, all on the same hymn sheet, going in the right direction with some guidelines to follow that will never change. So it's kind of that whole, as I used before that word, that baseline. So really, for an effective strategy, start with the 4 points that we've talked about, start just gathering that information, take a step back, and then look to engage perhaps with the threads we talk about, and keep going with that.
You mentioned before testimonials, and we've had a question come through that says, I'm an online business, and how would you suggest best getting feedback from customers? Are digital surveys, etc., still worthwhile?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the moment we've got to tap into that. And in fact, that's a really key point within the button process. Whilst I know I'm not sharing all 12 with you, I can tell you that is an extremely valuable part of the 12 steps that I talk about. Absolutely online surveys, using all your social media and channels that you can, and using your digital in many ways, especially at the moment. And there's a lot of really good digital marketing companies, you know, in the region as well, that would be keen to help with precise tools that you need to use. But I think it's important to stress just how important it is, though, to see that as the overall picture, which is why we say, you know, keep these 4 points in mind and keep that focus, because actually one thing feeds to the other. So yes, the answer to the question is absolutely, they are still incredibly worthwhile, and do as much as you can online, and videos online, you know, use social media, do videos, ask questions, ask for feedback. I think engaging as much as you can and being visible is really important. Absolutely.
So you mentioned there about videos to build the visibility. What other promotional methods do you find have the most return on investment?
Well, I think, you know, for us, we've done a range of different things. And again, ourselves reach out to other digital experts because there are some, let's say, some brilliant companies in the Northeast that we kind of work alongside with and that we champion. Because I think this is where we're coming at it from a different perspective and where we're very unique in that we're providing that framework for people to then apply to all aspects of the business, and digital being just a part. You know, but we sort of get a lot of return from our social media channels that we use, we think are great. I think LinkedIn proves very well for business. Equally sort of videos, and there's more YouTubes cropping up now, and I can see as well, so that's proving very successful. I think we've just launched ours. So yeah, that's a good way as well. But I think I do need to kind of also stress the importance of keeping this on track and keeping things focused and together, because the other reason that's prompted me to put this platform together is the fact that people can often get quite busy with tasks, and I've been in situations where people have said, I've got a million things to do, or you know, I spoke to marketing managers and one said to me, God, I've got about 200 things on my desk, and I'm thinking there's got to be an easier way than this. And this is where we can go off and do all these millions and millions of different tasks, but that's how we can then lose sight of trying to keep things together. So when we talk about digital, that's one element of marketing, you know, and but what you get from your digital, what feedback you get, what people say to you could be used in other elements of your marketing. So applying a framework and a thinking like the one that we're bringing gets more from that. You get more from, so you might get more from your digital than you realize. If you apply something like this framework, you actually might get more content that you can use not only on digital, but in other ways. And that's why it's so good to keep your mind open to this kind of framework that we're talking about, because that's how you get much more return on your investment. So I think absolutely everything has its place. But definitely explore more. But I'd say videos, YouTube, social media, keep it going, good channels.
That's great, thank you. We've had a couple of questions come through as well about analytics. So there are a lot of analytics you can try and collect when it comes to digital marketing. Which ones would you suggest give the real insight into the performance of your marketing? And another sort of additional question is it better to have lots of metrics or to focus on one or two specific ones?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, as I say, my business is much more about sort of the, you know, the planning side of things, but we look at analytics to see how our business is performing. And I do and have had and done that for a number of clients. I think it's very useful to look back at analytics. I think you can go too far sometimes, and that's me just being open and honest, and spend a lot of time. But I do think it's really important though, and I do it on a monthly basis for myself and a number of clients, to look back and see, you know, where your successes have been on the posts that you've put out, where you're getting some engagement, do some research into other keywords and other ways that you can sort of maximize your content. And I just think on a regular basis, say once a month, to be aware of the key analytics. So your engagement rate, who's replying, what's going on. I mean, Twitter, and I often use TweetDeck, that gives you a great way to look at the analytics. I think that's really useful. Good to see when people are online, so you know when to post and when, if you're scheduling, when would be most effective. And for more information on that, then I think, you know, they can get in touch with me and I can signpost to some really good companies that would provide some really good information on that and much more science on the analytics. But personally, I think keep it up to date with it, weekly or monthly, and just make sure you know what your posts are doing, where your audience are, what their interests are, and that kind of information is available quite easily. Yeah,
great. We've got another question here. With content marketing being a really big part of modern marketing, how best would you start that if you're a traditional product business?
Oh, love it. Okay. So I think this is where I get all excited, because this is exactly what I'm talking about, which is the linking of those 4 key areas. And I think it is as straightforward as looking back at your products and your services, and being clear on, you know, what it is you want your potential clients to do. So, you know, it's about content, and you can get very creative in many ways. But I think when we talk about products and services, we do say, look, that is what you're offering. So are you selling blue widgets? What is it about those blue widgets? You know, really dig deep into that product to kind of get information out that you can put in your content. But at that point, it's also interesting when it comes to what you're putting in your content is to look just generally at your business. I will give you this is a really, really off the page example, but I think it might help answer the question. When I did a workshop with some businesses recently, and one of them was, although it might be tricky now, but they were an outside hospitality kind of business. And she was talking about her products, but she casually happened to mention about the gardens next door and how these flowers came out at this time of year. And we were talking and we began to say, actually, you know, that is incredibly good content because it's something that's different and that could bring people to her business. So whilst it was nothing to do with her service in one way, we kind of decided that that buttonhole that talks about a product and a service is really the key to your content. So it's all about your business, your tone. What is it about your place, about where you are? Just it's looking back again at what you are about and trying to explore that creativity. But if you've got your team on board as well, and using a framework like this is such a great way to get engaged with your team, it'd be amazing what ideas you get from your team. So I'm all for looking out and looking forward, but sometimes you have to look again at your business in a different way that can spark ideas for great content. And I think that's where you get engaged with the team, keep your people motivated, talk about your products, be innovative. What can you change about your products? What's happening? But again, that comes down to never forgetting to look at your potential clients, what they're doing, and also feedback from your clients. All that feeds into your into your products that will then generate great content. Hope that answers the question.
Oh, that's great, thank you. We've had another one through here asking, what do you see as the biggest areas that people overlook when they're building their marketing strategies?
Yeah, I think actually quite a bit of what we've talked about today, a lot of the reasons why I've done what I've done is for that exact reason, because I think it's hopefully I can answer this in a way that will be helpful to whoever asked the question, but a lot of it is down to the communication and the coordination within your business is a massive factor. Because what we can do is we can easily get led down one path and then miss a lot. So I think by starting off with what I've talked about, like those 4 key areas, you won't miss anything. It kind of is actually as simple as that. And I want people to know that I've done what I've done because I just want to make life, I know it sounds kind of crazy anyway, but actually it's fairly straightforward as possible. You know, business is great, so we don't need to overcomplicate things, and I think sometimes we can do that without realizing it. So that's why I was just so passionate about developing something that gave a business a starting point and 4 key areas that would mean they would not miss a thing, because I think people easily can overlook basic things sometimes, you know, like that communication with the prospect in a certain way, or certain things to ask a client. You know, the things we've talked about are kind of, if you flip it round, it's almost the things that can easily get missed. So they're there to say, no, you won't miss them. Here's your reminder. Here's 12 points that you will, if you stick with these 12, you'll never go wrong. You know, I've been that person in that role where I've had to deliver to a number of bosses and in various organizations that I've worked. So I've been the person that's had to coordinate everything, and it's not always easy by any means, and you've got all kinds of different influences and things happening, so trying to manage it all is not always an easy task, I've got to say. So I'm giving a shout out to anyone who is doing that, and also those companies that don't have a marketing person in place. It's really difficult trying to juggle it all. So what I'm talking about in terms of not missing anything when it comes to a marketing strategy really does come from the heart, and it does come from experience, from being there. So life can be enjoyable, successful. You don't miss anything, and we just focus on success. So, you know, it's kind of, I've sort of hoped I maybe answered it, but maybe the wrong way around by saying that what people miss is kind of things we've put in, but starting with the 4, keeping it based on that is the way forward, definitely.
Fab. And another question that we've had is, as a small business, what rough proportion of revenue should I look to put towards marketing when there are so many other cost pressures?
Okay. I have to say, I'm not ducking the question. However, it's so difficult to give a percentage because, people talk about percentages to invest, and maybe that's a separate conversation. It's difficult to comment without looking at specifics, because I don't know if it's going to be different to what other people have said who are in marketing, where they say you've got to invest 10% or 20%. People say that. I'm not going to put a figure out there. I'm not just going to band a figure around just for the sake of it in some ways, because actually I think it is the way you think about it. And to be honest with you, the way you think about it doesn't cost anything. And I know it might sound a bit, wishy-washy answer, but actually it's the truth. The platform that I bring is based on a way of thinking, actually. And by applying something like that, what we're not doing at the moment is getting to that scientific thing about budgets. That comes, that definitely does. And that is, in there, it's further down the line. But first and foremost, I would focus my every effort. If I had my time again, I wouldn't do anything different. I'd do the same thing. I'd start off with the thought process first, because actually it's amazing what you can do without having to, literally spend a fortune, by just thinking actually a little differently. And that's what we're doing. That's our business. That's that whole idea about the button, is just giving people an opportunity to look at it a bit differently, that actually explore what they're currently doing, that they might only need to just tweak slightly. And then when we talk about 12 threads, they might currently, if they were to look at it, be doing 6, but actually if they looked at it again, they might find they're doing 10, and so all of a sudden it's just a shift of thought. And because that doesn't cost anything, that's what I believe. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give a figure, but I'm not, I need to just speak honestly, really, and say what I feel. So I think you can Google, and people say, oh, you spend X percentage, but I'm kind of basing my answer on actually what I believe through a lot of experience as well, and what I know can make a difference.
Oh no, that's great, thank you. We've had another one through, which I think quite a few people will probably want to know an answer to. It's within the current environment, how can we cut through the noise?
Good one. Yeah. Well, let's not take anything away. I know it is, incredibly tragic times, and I totally get that. If anything, our business has always been very positive and motivational, and I know it's very difficult at the moment, but we're going to stand firm with that belief, and we do agree with the whole sticking together and working together and thinking forward. So we're all about looking longer term, because we'll all come through the time that we're in, and we need to be ready for that, and take the time now sort of to plan. And I think that's why something as straightforward as looking at a strategy that is just 4 basic points. Well, I'm taking the word basic out of that for a second, because no, it's 4 key points, because it's looking again at your business. Now's the time, while we have this opportunity, for want of a better word, to look at your business and how you are going to propel yourself forward, and looking again at your resources, your team, your clients that you currently have, what markets are available to you. Looking at those 4 points that I've mentioned is a really good focus, and actually a positive way of looking forward. So let's cut through, like you say, the noise element, and take the time out to now consider and think differently, because we're probably going to have to. The world is not an easy or great place right now, and I hope I'm not using any wrong words, but we all know it's just not great. But I think for businesses, I'm a big fan of kind of seeing this through and sticking with it. To quote my own business, we're talking about threads, we're talking about keeping going. We just don't want that button to fall off. No matter what, we need to do that. And I think it's all about definitely mental health at the moment, definitely health, and business health. And the way you can keep an eye on your business health, take a step back and just look again, apply some different thinking. And I think that's the way forward. Actually, it's oddly enough to just go back a pace, because we get so wrapped up in activity. And again, I've been there. People say, oh, what are you doing on social media at the minute? When have you done this? Are you doing that? and it's all about the doing, which is brill, obviously, absolutely great. But it's the thinking before all that activity, and we've got that opportunity to do that now, and I think we should, absolutely.
Fab. We've had another question come in. So if a lot of my marketing was done face-to-face and at events, what would you do in the current market to try and keep engaged with not only current customers but tackling new ones? We're starting to use LinkedIn more to try and do this. Are there any other ways to complement this?
Yeah, I think it is a case of exploring those, you know, when we talked about communication, we talked about those 3 sectors, and we were saying that it's people, print and digital. I think it comes down to literally exploring more of the digital that we've got at the moment, and it is looking at different things you can do in that, and also being consistent as well, and who in your team can help and support with that, who's got ideas. Ask your team, say, right, you know, I don't know what kind of business you are, but ask the other people in your organization, and pull those resources and ideas. And I would just explore as much as you can in terms of the digital channels available to you, and also look into at this time what data you have for potential clients. And there's some good companies out there that can provide you with some good target data as well, and look at some, you know, email marketing. I don't deny that it will be right now quite cluttered in some respects. I get that, because probably that's what everyone needs to turn to do. But again, this is where I'm saying about the thinking. So you'd look back at what you're offering and actually see whether you can look at different services or products that might suit that channel better, or what are you offering? Can you do a bit of innovation quite easily to change what you put out? You know, so again, you can start to see, whilst I can't name the 12 threads, I'm trying my best to tell you as much as I can. You need to book on my other webinars. But this is when it comes down to the thinking. So start looking at your other buttonholes as ways to try and give you other ideas. What can you get from your clients? Have you had any feedback from clients that might help you put a different message out there? Ask your clients or ask other people. Do some research that way. But definitely explore your digital channels. Look again at what data you've got for your potential clients, and see if you can explore and expand, you know, what you're putting out to them. So I hope that gives you some kind of ideas and encouragement. Keep going.
Thank you. We're going to finish off with one last question from our Q&A. So what would be your best hidden tools and tech out there to help with all things marketing that people should take a look at?
I mean, what was the best? Sorry, just repeat that.
What are your best hidden tools and technology that people should take a look at to help with their marketing?
Oh, well, this is exciting. I can tell you, although it's not quite there just yet, but our process, which is called My Marketing Button, we actually have a beta sort of app that was produced, and we're just currently now in phase 2. We're just putting a web platform together. So the process that I'm talking about, the 4 buttonholes and the threads, will be available probably within the next 2 months, I would think, 2.5 months, as a mobile responsive web platform that you can go on and you can use to keep you on track. So all the things we've talked about today and more, to keep you on track with your marketing. So when it comes to tech, I've kind of got to promote my own, sorry. But what I would say though, pushing that aside for a second, because that's coming out in a couple of months, but take time. We talked about analytics before, you know, look at that, keep a track of what you're doing, look at your analytics on all the social channels that you're using as well. Look at what email marketing you've done, you know, use that at this point. But I would honestly say the best thing to do right now is to try and put your business into those 4 categories we talked about, and start profiling and building and using that thought process into your business, and just see what ideas come out as a result of doing that. Because actually sometimes it's not, because I'm not from 1 minute saying that business needs to completely change everything they do. I'm saying they're doing great stuff, but I'm sure, like any business, they would just like to do more and to do better and continue to just grow. So it's giving that support in the way of a clear visual platform that enables a business to do that with some motivation and really good positive support. So the best thing to do right now is take time out, look at your business, start to put it into those 4 areas, and use that as your platform and your springboard to be future ready, so that you can propel forward, you know, certainly when we're through some of these difficult times. But let's look to the future, because there is one, and it's a button. I'm just saying.
Great. So just to kind of finish off then, how does Red Button Marketing focus and tailor its services specifically to the needs of businesses? And do you have any examples of this?
Well, what we've done, and we're just finishing off. We have sort of 4 pre-recorded webinars that we're doing that are talking about each of the buttonholes, the ones that I've mentioned today. So we're changing our business to respond to the times that we're in. It's probably where we would have liked to have gone maybe anyway, but perhaps sooner than maybe we had, we'd planned. But I think so that's what we're doing. And a lot more online and one-to-one coaching sessions, because what's interesting, and although it's just literally kind of hot off the press, we are going to be sort of rebranding to Red Button Marketing and Training, because just towards the end of last year, the workshop that we have, which talks about the buttonholes and the threads, did gain some CPD accreditation. So it is an accredited course. So our focus and our response to business is very much pursuing the idea of training, and that is very much what we're about. So we're training in a way with the methodology that we've innovated. We want to bring that and share and train and empower other people to go forward and really enjoy their business, enjoy their marketing, and see success. So there's that, and then the web-based platform is also another change for us in response to the feedback from the initial app that we had. So we've got that we're doing. So yeah, hopefully that's some examples, and we're excited.
Fab. Well, that brings us to the end. So thanks, Mags, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really valuable.
I hope so. It's been brilliant. And if anyone wants to get in touch, I'd absolutely love to have a chat. Here to help.
So if you'd like to reach out to Mags, you can email her at mags@redbutton.marketing. And if you'd like any more information from Umi, we have a number of articles and how-to guides covering marketing, as well as other topics to support you with different aspects of your strategy. So you can head over to our website at www.weareumi.co.uk. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been great fun. Can we do this every day?
Yes.
Thanks so much. Keep going, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.